Your salary could pay for 5 fresh graduates. Rachel smirked, sliding the termination papers across the polished conference table. Her eyes gleamed with cruel satisfaction. Nothing personal, just streamlining our talent investment. My hands remained steady as I accepted the termination folder, ending my 15-year career at Horizon Systems. My name is Marcus Chen, 52 years old, former chief network architect at Horizon Systems, a company I'd helped transform from a small industrial control company called Meridian Controls into an industry leader spanning 3 continents. I'd designed their proprietary network infrastructure, the backbone supporting operations for over 200 manufacturing clients worldwide. Rachel Winters had been our COO for exactly 7 months. She had impressive credentials, MBA from Wharton, previous executive at a Fortune 500 tech company, and a reputation for optimizing operational efficiency. What she lacked was any understanding of the intricate systems I'd custom-built over a decade and a half. "The severance is fair," said Keith from HR, sliding a thin folder toward me. 3 months' salary and your accrued vacation time. He seemed uncomfortable, avoiding eye contact. "Is that all you have to say?" Rachel asked, her expression suggesting she'd expected tears, anger, or begging. I simply nodded. Seemed straightforward enough. Rachel and Keith exchanged puzzled glances. They couldn't comprehend that my calmness wasn't acceptance. It was detachment. There's a profound difference. "We'll need your help transitioning the new team," Rachel added. "Perhaps a consulting arrangement for the handover period." "I'll consider it," I replied, knowing I wouldn't. 15 years of building something remarkable, reduced to a manila folder and an awkward handshake. What Rachel didn't understand, what she hadn't bothered to learn, was that I hadn't just implemented their systems. I had architected solutions so customized that only I fully understood their integration points, their fail-safes, their specialized protocols. And I had no intention of explaining them now. I joined Horizon Systems back when it was called Meridian Controls, operating out of a converted warehouse in Pittsburgh. The entire technology infrastructure consisted of a handful of workstations and a rudimentary local network. The founder, Thomas Meridian, recruited me from my position at a defense contractor in Virginia. "We're ready to scale," he told me over coffee, his enthusiasm contagious. "But we need someone who can build us a network that won't buckle under pressure." Over 15 years, I transformed that basic setup into a sophisticated industrial control network that managed real-time monitoring, predictive maintenance, and emergency response systems across manufacturing plants worldwide. It wasn't just code, it was craftsmanship, tailored specifically for high-risk industrial environments where system failures could mean life or death. I built it meticulously, layer by layer, adding redundancies, creating specialized protocols, and implementing security measures that exceeded industry standards. When Thomas retired 8 years ago, his daughter Eliza sold the company to Apex Ventures, a private equity firm that rebranded us as Horizon Systems. The acquisition brought changes, new management, aggressive expansion targets, quarterly performance reviews. They kept me on, impressed by the reliability of my systems, but gradually priorities shifted. Dependability became secondary to cost-cutting. Long-term infrastructure investments were postponed for quick quarterly gains. My warnings about maintaining system integrity were met with indifference or outright dismissal. "You engineers always want the perfect solution," the new executives would say, "but perfect is the enemy of profitable." I persisted, demonstrating how my approach prevented costly system failures. I showed them the client retention numbers, the near-zero downtime statistics, the disaster recovery capabilities that had saved 3 major clients during catastrophic events. But they didn't care about what had been prevented, only what it cost. They couldn't see the value in something that hadn't broken because it was designed not to break in the first place. The warning signs had been accumulating for months, though I'd chosen to ignore them. First came the rejection of my proposal for a comprehensive documentation team. "Too expensive for what it delivers," Rachel had commented, dismissing years of institutional knowledge as if it were an optional luxury. Then they brought in the consultants, bright-eyed MBA graduates with presentations about cloud migration strategies and agile transformations. who couldn't comprehend why our industrial control systems required specialized architecture rather than off-the-shelf solutions. But Amazon Web Services could handle this for a fraction of your maintenance costs, one consultant insisted, completely missing the point about latency requirements for systems controlling dangerous machinery. I was gradually excluded from strategic planning meetings. My emails proposing infrastructure improvements went unanswered. The annual budget for my department was cut by 30%, then another 20% the following quarter. My wife, May, noticed before I did. "They're pushing you out," she said one evening as I vented my frustrations. "They don't understand what you've built, and that scares them." "They need me," I insisted. "No one else understands how these systems integrate." "That might be precisely the problem," she replied quietly. 8 months ago, Rachel hired 3 recent graduates from Carnegie Mellon's computer science program. They were assigned to shadow me, asking questions about the system architecture, requesting access to code repositories, and mapping out network dependencies. I answered their questions patiently, but watched their eyes glaze over when I explained the custom protocols I'd designed for fail-safe operations in hazardous environments. How could they grasp in weeks what had taken me years to build? Last week, Rachel's assistant scheduled a quick sync on my calendar. "Just a routine quarterly review," she assured me. I should have recognized the pattern: the Friday meeting, the HR representative unexpectedly attending, the conference room far from my team's workspace. All the signs were there. I simply refused to read them. I cleared out my desk with methodical precision. 15 years of innovation, problem-solving, and dedication reduced to a small cardboard box. My most valuable creations, the algorithms, the system architecture, the specialized protocols, weren't tangible. They existed in code and in my mind. Several colleagues watched from a distance, their expressions a mixture of sympathy and fear. Nobody approached except Javier, a senior developer I'd mentored for 7 years. "This is insane," he whispered, helping me pack my books. "What are they thinking?" "They're thinking about the next quarterly report," I replied, "not about what happens after." In the parking garage, my phone buzzed with a message from Diana, our lead system administrator. "Everyone's in shock. What do they expect us to do without you?" I didn't respond. What could I say? Driving home through the Pittsburgh rain, I felt oddly unburdened. For years, I'd carried the weight of Horizon's infrastructure on my shoulders. The constant vigilance, the 3 a.m. emergency calls, the responsibility for systems that safeguarded both equipment and human lives. Now that weight belonged to someone else. At home, I poured myself a rare glass of scotch and sat on our covered porch, watching storm clouds gather over the Monongahela River. May joined me, resting her hand gently on my shoulder. "What now?" she asked. "Something will come up," I said, surprising myself with how much I meant it. That evening I slept better than I had in years. No emergency alerts, no system monitoring, no weight of responsibility, just silence. The next morning I updated my long-neglected LinkedIn profile and began browsing job listings without any real urgency. By afternoon I had 3 messages from recruiters and an invitation to lunch from the CTO of a biomedical engineering firm I'd collaborated with years ago. "Take your time," May suggested. "You've earned a break." She was right. For the first time in 15 years, I could breathe without the pressure of systems that never slept. I decided to enjoy it while it lasted. The first call came exactly 3 days after my termination. I was in my home office refining my resume when my phone displayed Rachel's name. I let it go to voicemail. "Marcus, it's Rachel. We're experiencing some issues with the failover system for the Milwaukee plant. The team is working on it, but they're having trouble understanding some of your network architecture. Could you call me back? It would just be a quick consultation." I deleted the message and continued updating my resume. 3 more calls followed that afternoon, each voicemail sounding increasingly tense. By evening, Diana texted me, "Complete system failure at Milwaukee. Production halted. Rachel's on a warpath." The Milwaukee plant manufactured precision components for medical devices. A system failure there wouldn't just cost money. It could potentially impact patient safety down the line. For a moment, I considered returning Rachel's call. Then I remembered her smirk across the conference table. "Your salary could pay for 5 fresh graduates." "Let the fresh graduates fix it, then." The next morning, Keith from HR called. "Marcus, I hope you're doing well. We'd like to discuss a consulting arrangement to help resolve some current system issues. The compensation would be quite substantial." "How substantial?" I asked, breaking my silence. "$250 per hour, minimum 8-hour engagement." "I'll think about it," I said, then hung up. I sat at our kitchen table, watching birds at the feeder in the backyard. May placed a cup of coffee in front of me. "What are you thinking?" she asked. "I'm thinking they're discovering exactly what 15 years of experience is worth." By the third day, the calls had escalated. Rachel, Keith, even Thomas Meridian's daughter Eliza, who still served on the board. The Milwaukee plant remained offline. The backup systems were failing to initiate properly. The customer service system was flooded with urgent inquiries from clients experiencing disruptions. I answered none of them. On day 5, an email arrived from Vertex Technologies, a rising competitor in the industrial automation sector. I'd crossed paths with their founder, Sophia Novak, at several industry conferences over the years. "Marcus, I heard about your departure from Horizon. I've always admired your work from afar. Our CTO is retiring next month, and we're looking for someone with your expertise to lead our technical transformation. Would you be interested in discussing opportunities with us?" I responded immediately and arranged a meeting for the following day. That evening, as May and I were preparing dinner, our doorbell rang insistently. Through the peephole, I saw Rachel Winters standing on our porch, her normally perfect appearance noticeably disheveled. Her designer suit was wrinkled, and her expression conveyed barely contained panic. I opened the door but remained in the doorway, blocking entry. "Marcus, I apologize for coming to your home unannounced," she said, attempting to regain her composed executive demeanor. "But we have an emergency situation. The Milwaukee system failure has cascaded to 3 other plants. Nothing we've tried is working." "That sounds serious," I replied neutrally. "It is. We need your help immediately. The board has authorized me to offer you a consulting fee of $500 per hour, no limit on hours, effective immediately if you'll come with me now." I thought about the cardboard box in my garage, about streamlining our talent investment, about 15 years reduced to a fraction of 1 quarterly report. "I'm sorry to hear about your troubles," I said quietly. "But I have a job interview tomorrow. Something promising has come up." I closed the door on her stunned expression and returned to the kitchen where May was trying not to smile. "You enjoyed that a little too much," she observed. "Maybe," I admitted. "But it felt good to be valued correctly, even if it took a crisis for them to see it." For the first time since my termination, I felt not vindication but clarity. I wasn't going to rescue the people who had dismissed my value so casually. My meeting with Sophia Novak exceeded expectations. Instead of the typical corporate office, we met at a quiet cafe overlooking the Allegheny River. "I've followed your work since you implemented that groundbreaking fail-safe protocol for Meridian controls," she said, stirring her tea. "What you built at Horizon, it's the gold standard in our industry." "Thank you," I replied, somewhat taken aback by her specific knowledge of my accomplishments. "I'll be direct, Marcus. We need someone who understands both the technology and its real-world applications. Our clients are moving into more complex manufacturing environments, and our current systems aren't keeping pace." She laid out her vision for Vertex, not just selling industrial control systems, but creating an integrated platform that could adapt to each client's unique requirements while maintaining uncompromising safety standards. "Why me?" I asked. "There are younger engineers out there with more recent training, surely cheaper options." Sophia laughed, reminding me of Thomas Meridian years ago. "We tried that route, hired a team of brilliant young developers from MIT. They built us an elegant modern system that crashes whenever ambient temperature in a plant exceeds 85 degrees. We don't need cheap or elegant. We need reliable." Her offer was straightforward: Chief Technology Officer, full benefits, stock options, and a salary 30% higher than what I'd made at Horizon. "I need to think about it," I said, though I already knew my answer. "Of course," she replied, "but don't take too long. Our clients are getting restless." As I walked back to my car, my phone rang again. Eliza Meridian, Thomas's daughter. "Marcus, please, the situation is critical. The consultants we've brought in say they need at least 3 weeks to untangle the system architecture, and our biggest client is threatening to cancel their contract if we can't resolve this immediately. I'm sorry, Eliza, I said sincerely. I've already accepted another position. The line went silent before she responded. We'll double whatever they're offering you. It's not about the money, I replied. It never was. 3 weeks into my new role at Vertex Technologies, Diana invited me to lunch. We met at a small Indian restaurant near Vertex's headquarters, far enough from Horizon's offices to avoid unwanted encounters. It's worse than you can imagine, she said, lowering her voice despite the bustling restaurant noise. The Milwaukee plant was offline for 8 days. They finally got it running at reduced capacity, but nobody understands why the backup systems failed. I wasn't surprised. Those backup systems had multiple authentication protocols that needed to be executed in precise sequence, a security measure I'd implemented after a major client experienced a sabotage attempt years ago. But that's not all, Diana continued, glancing around before sliding her tablet across the table. Look what I found. On the screen was an email chain between Rachel and Apex Ventures senior partners, dating back 4 months before my termination. The subject line read, Cost Reduction Strategy, Phase 1. I scanned the contents, feeling a strange detachment as I read Rachel's assessment to the senior partners. Chen's department represents our highest personnel expense. His custom systems are unnecessarily complex and create dependency on specialized knowledge. As COO, I recommend replacing him with a streamlined team of junior engineers to yield immediate cost savings of approximately $580,000 annually while facilitating our transition to standardized platforms. Another email from Rachel outlined a 6-month plan to extract institutional knowledge before implementing the Legacy Staff Reduction Initiative. How did you get these? I asked. I'm still the system administrator, Diana replied with a thin smile. I was troubleshooting the email server and found these in the recovery partition. Further down the chain, I found the real motivation behind my termination. Apex Ventures was preparing Horizon for acquisition by Meridian Global Enterprise, a conglomerate with no connection to Thomas Meridian despite the similar name. They were cutting costs aggressively to improve the balance sheet before the sale. There's more, Diana said. Half the engineering team has resigned. Rachel brought in a specialized recovery firm, but they're saying it could take months to fully restore system functionality. Why are you showing me this? I asked. Diana closed her tablet. Because I submitted my resignation yesterday, and because North Star Industries is considering canceling their contract with Horizon. The significance of Diana's last statement wasn't lost on me. North Star Industries was Horizon's largest client, representing nearly 40% of their annual revenue. Losing them would be catastrophic, especially with an acquisition pending. Would Vertex be interested in hiring a senior system administrator? Diana asked with a knowing smile. The next morning, I discussed Diana's situation with Sophia. She didn't hesitate. If she's half as good as you say, we want her, and anyone else from your former team who might be looking. Within 2 weeks, we'd brought on Diana and 3 other key members of my former engineering team at Horizon. Their institutional knowledge proved invaluable as we began designing Vertex's next-generation control systems. The real challenge emerged unexpectedly. Sophia called me into her office one afternoon, her expression serious but excited. I just got off the phone with James Northstar, she said, referring to the CEO of North Star Industries. They're officially terminating their contract with Horizon at the end of the month. They want to know if we can take over their operations. North Star operated 14 advanced manufacturing facilities across North America. Their integration would more than triple Vertex's client base overnight. We're not ready for that scale, I admitted. Our new architecture is solid, but we'd need at least 3 months to prepare for an implementation of that size. Sophia leaned forward. James is offering us 6 months and is willing to fund additional development resources. He said, and I quote, "After what happened at Milwaukee, we can't risk another system failure. Find whatever Marcus needs to make this happen." This was the moment, the opportunity to build something not just equal to what I'd created at Horizon, but superior. A system designed from the ground up with proper documentation, training protocols, and no single points of failure. I'll need to bring on at least 4 more senior engineers and set up a dedicated development environment, I said, my mind already mapping out the architecture. Done, Sophia replied without hesitation. Whatever you need. That night I sketched system diagrams until dawn, reimagining what industrial control systems could be when built with proper resources and respect for expertise. The next 4 months were intense. We assembled an elite engineering team, including several former Horizon employees who reached out after hearing about our North Star project. I designed a modular architecture that could scale seamlessly while maintaining rigorous safety protocols. Most importantly, I insisted on comprehensive documentation for every component. No single person, not even me, would be the sole keeper of critical knowledge. This adds 3 weeks to our timeline, I told Sophia during a project review. Then we take 3 more weeks, she replied without hesitation. We do it right. Halfway through development, an email arrived from Eliza Meridian. Marcus, I want to apologize for how things ended at Horizon. The board was misled about the implications of your departure. Rachel has been removed as COO, but the damage is done. System reliability issues continue, and North Star's departure is a devastating blow. If you ever consider returning, the door remains open. I didn't respond. 2 months later, we were ready for the first phase of North Star's integration. We'd start with their smallest facility in Tennessee before rolling out to their larger operations. The night before implementation, Sophia called me into her office. A visitor was waiting, James North Star himself. So you're the architect behind this new system, he said, standing to shake my hand. Sophia speaks very highly of you. The team has been exceptional, I replied. James smiled. I hear you used to work for Horizon. I nodded, unsure where the conversation was heading. They're struggling, he continued. After pulling our business, several other clients followed suit. Their system never fully recovered from those cascading failures. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, genuinely meaning it. Despite everything, I had no desire to see 15 years of my work collapse entirely. Apex Ventures is trying to salvage their investment, James continued. They're looking for buyers, but with their technical issues and client exodus, they're not finding many takers. He paused. Except one. I looked at Sophia, who nodded slightly. Vertex is considering acquiring Horizon's assets, James explained, at a significant discount to what they were valued at 6 months ago. The irony wasn't lost on me. The systems I'd built, the company that had discarded me, now potentially coming under my direction again. If this acquisition happens, James continued, we'd want someone who understands both companies to lead the technical integration. Someone who could salvage what's valuable from Horizon's architecture while transitioning everything to your new systems. Are you asking if I'd be willing to oversee that? I clarified. Sophia nodded. Only if you're comfortable with it, Marcus. We won't move forward otherwise. I considered the proposition. There was no desire for revenge in my heart, just an engineer's appreciation for systems built with care and the people who maintain them. I'd be willing, I said finally. But I have one condition. We do it right. Full documentation, proper training for everyone, no shortcuts. Agreed, Sophia said without hesitation. The North Star integration proceeded flawlessly. Our first implementation in Tennessee completed without a single minute of downtime. The remaining 13 facilities followed over the next 3 months, each transition smoother than the last. Meanwhile, Vertex's acquisition of Horizon progressed quietly. By the time it was announced publicly, we had already developed a comprehensive integration plan that would preserve the best elements of Horizon's infrastructure while addressing its critical vulnerabilities. 8 months after my termination, I walked into Horizon's headquarters, now a Vertex Technologies facility, as the Chief Integration Officer. The security guard did a double take, then smiled with recognition. Welcome back, Mr. Chen, he said. The lobby still looked the same, but the atmosphere had changed. Gone was the frantic tension I'd sensed during my final months. Instead, there was a cautious optimism among the remaining staff. Rachel was gone, along with most of the executive team that had approved my termination. Eliza Meridian had stayed on as an advisor, helping smooth the transition with legacy clients. In the main conference room, the combined teams gathered for the kickoff meeting. Sophia introduced me as the person who would lead the technical integration. "Many of you already know Marcus," she said. "He built the original systems that made Horizon a leader in this industry. Now he'll guide us in creating something even better." 1 year later, the integration was complete. Vertex Integrated Systems had become the dominant provider of industrial control networks in North America. The systems I designed were now running in over 200 manufacturing facilities, with 0 critical failures since implementation. On a crisp autumn morning, I drove to our headquarters for a final executive meeting before transitioning to my new role. The trees along the Monongahela River were painted in brilliant shades of amber and crimson, a fitting backdrop for this chapter's conclusion. "The board unanimously approved your proposal," Sophia announced as soon as I entered her office. "The Vertex Technical Academy will launch next quarter. You'll have complete autonomy to design the curriculum and select instructors." This had been my condition for staying after the integration. Not a corner office or stock options, but creating a division dedicated to training the next generation of system architects and engineers, teaching them not just coding, but the philosophy of building systems meant to endure. "Thank you," I said simply. "This means a lot." Later that afternoon, as I packed up my integration project files, Eliza Meridian knocked on my door. "Got a minute?" she asked. We walked to the courtyard behind the building, the same spot where I'd often eaten lunch during my Horizon days. "I spoke with my father yesterday," she said. "He's enjoying retirement in Arizona, but he still follows industry news. He was pleased to hear about your new role here." "How is Thomas doing?" I asked. "Good, playing too much golf," she smiled. "He always said letting you go would be the biggest mistake Horizon could make. He was right." I nodded, unsure how to respond. "I learned something valuable from all this," Eliza continued. "Value isn't always visible in a quarterly report. Sometimes it's in what doesn't happen. The disasters prevented, the systems that never fail." As I drove home that evening, I reflected on the journey. I hadn't sought revenge when I was terminated. I had simply moved forward, building something better, something that would outlast any individual career or company decision. The most satisfying response to being undervalued isn't anger or retribution. It's excellence. It's creating something so undeniably valuable that its absence becomes impossible to ignore. In the end, true vindication comes not from watching others fail, but from succeeding so thoroughly that your worth becomes self-evident. Sometimes, the best answer to "you're too expensive" is simply proving that you're worth every penny.